Good morning, everybody. Well, we all know what today is. And here we are, 19 years later, with a president who promised to look into what happened, but who instead is busy fighting another 19. And that's CV-19. Something with a mortality rate that is as low as a fraction of 1% of the people who contract it. Fighting the CV-19 with 300 million doses of warp speed a month for every man, woman, and child in America. I want you to count the number of tridents that you see on the facade of the plaza that once stood. There are 19. And here we are, 19 years later, fighting another invisible enemy. Now, I wanted to open the show with another 666 Kushner building. Just in case the 666 Tishman building that Kushner owned, who sold recently, in case that hadn't convinced you yet. This is One Journal Square Tower 1, and it is 666 feet tall. This is proposed, it hasn't been built yet, but as you can see, the developer is Kushner Companies. Now, we're going to spend some time in Google Earth, but it's important to note that today's date has 111 days left in the year. And 11/1, November 1st, is the day that the military will be rolling down the streets of America, injecting people. This is what we asked for, and this is where we are. Now, it's important to revisit today's event because so much of the most important evidence never made it to the mainstream truth community. So much evidence that could have turned the course of history. We're going to look at just one piece and one aspect of this evidence today. Now, the two buildings that you're looking at here opened on April 4th. 4/4. And they opened in 1973. And in Hebrew years, 1973 was the year 5733. And what you're looking at is their original foundation. Memorialized, of course, with the sunken pools. Now, what I'm going to do next, probably about 5% of the truth community has seen this, because this is the way YouTube has even the truth community divided. If the entire truth community saw this, we could make a change. We could actually help people wake up from their sleep. Now, all I'm going to do is draw a measurement line. This isn't complicated. This is called an angular measurement. Okay, that's all it is. An angular measurement that is not arbitrary, but very specific. And the reason why this line that I'm going to draw is so important is because it encodes a number that very few people understand what is going on with it. We get this tool to work. Always got to wonder, right? There we go. There's the tool. So we're going to pull this line over here. In other words, if you were a surveyor out here at the reflecting pool or at one corner when the tower stood, this is what you would measure. 119 degrees. Anyone can do this in Google Earth. As you can see, this is not a stretch. It is the measurement. Now, what's so interesting about 119 degrees? Well, write it backwards. But it keeps going from here. There's much more to this story as the 119 degree number emerges. Remember, these foundations were poured in the late 1960s. Well, Casey, maybe they just put the reflecting pools at that angle, but the original buildings weren't at that angle. That's not correct. I'll show you the history. These were the exact places where the buildings stood. Now, for those of you that are new to the channel, you think this is some kind of a trick, but it's not. This is our reality. It's not just this area that was aligned to this number. Let's go back in time in the history tool here, just before they came down. Now, I'm being very careful with the way I speak about this event because I want to demonstrate to you how YouTube's algorithms work. They're not just audio algorithms, they're also visual algorithms. So as you can see here, here's the footprint right here. And the buildings are exactly where they should be. See this? So this isn't stretching. They didn't change the location of the reflecting pools. They put them at the angle that they originally stood, is what I'm trying to get you to understand. Because what will happen is people will come out and try to talk you out of this. They'll say it's a coincidence, or they'll say that it was changed. They will put all kinds of doubt in your mind so that you do not come to terms with the foreknowledge going back to even before the building of these buildings. The furthest that I've tracked it back to is 1946. And that was the year that Dewey, the governor at that time, actually established the WTC. It started out from a coin-op business, believe it or not. And that is how the world currency began. And America being the standard of that currency with the dollar. And he just so happened to elect this board of supervisors for this center. He did that on the very day and year that George Bush Jr. was born. The day and year. It was almost like a birthday gift to his father, Bush Sr., who at the time was about 20 years old when Bush Jr. was born. The Bush legacy, the Bush family, loved Dewey. You can go back and look about how they spoke about him and how great he was. So these are not stretches to ask these questions of these strange synchronicities associated with this event. So, what are the odds of these foundations lining up? So what I decided to do is dig deeper. Actually, Mark from Yahuwah's Word is King, there's a link on the front of my channel, was the one that asked me to look and keep digging. And I said, there's no way we're going to find anything else. But yet, something else emerged. Mark discovered that all of Lower Manhattan, in these east-west facing streets, are also aligned to 119 degrees. And you can see it here, but when you measure the streets, they're also, see how they all basically terminate here at this point, funneled down, and everything coming back off of the towers are all aligned to 119 degrees as well. Now, you wouldn't believe it if I just didn't show you right now. But this is what's going on. Now we're going to zoom this out even further, so you can see this all play out before your eyes. 119 over and over again. And you're wondering to yourself, how can this be? That all of these streets are aligned to the same angle. It's because there is something else ruling this world. There is something else ruling this world. Now, you're looking at the UN building. We're going to zoom in on the UN building, and I found something else. The founding of America, all based on the 119 degrees. Now, I have my theories as to what 119 degrees means and the opposite of that number, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But there it is. You can see this for yourself. This general 119 degree alignment running all across Lower Manhattan. Simply unbelievable. Now I'm going to turn on the 3D buildings here. After we run a couple more measurements, you guys can see what's going on. 119. Here's a good example. The street lines right up to 119 degrees. Now I call this the 119 degree matrix because there's something going on here. We just haven't figured out exactly what it is. But I think we have enough clues to understand what we're looking at here. Now, I believe that Christ was born today. Both the Jewish calendar and the Ethiopian calendar have their new year on today's date. And we also discovered the 19-year metonic cycle of both the sun and the moon. So I came over here to the United Nations because in Americanized research, we couldn't believe that this was happening. So we came in here and I drew a line between the corner of the property, going all the way back to the towers. And look at what I found. Let's do the measurements. You guys can see this live. 6,666 yards from the corner of the property of the UN to the cornerstone of one of the towers. There it is right there. Now, do I have your attention? (6,666 yards from the cornerstone of the outside of one of the towers all the way back to the corner of the property of the UN, which ends right here There's actually a tunnel that comes out from underneath this that cars drive through. There's a light post that becomes the marker. And you can go and play in Google Earth with this all you want. And this is what you will come up with as well. Unbelievable. Now, there's more. Let's zoom out. We're back to the UN again. I'm going to rotate the screen here. I'm going slow because sometimes Google Earth will cut out part of what I'm saying as it's loading the data, right? So we're going to go very slow so that you guys can understand what's happening here. Okay? Are you ready for this? Oh, Casey, 119 degrees. Come on, you gotta be kidding me. Those with eyes to see can see the number 119 right before your eyes. Now, what I did is I did an image and I put it on the left of your border so you can see what I'm seeing. But this is it. We're not going to take the time to draw it out. 119 formed by the parking lot. And if you're still having issues coming to terms with the truth, you will see that when I draw a line here on the edge of this driveway, it too aligns to 119 degrees, just like all of the streets around it. How can this be? The world is now involved? This is what we've been trying to tell you. The entire world. Now, if you're still not convinced, then we're going to go down here. I'm going to show you this strange building that opened in the UN on this property in 1952. Decades and decades and decades before the event. Let's turn on 3D buildings. Let that load up. And we're going to play Count the Windows. Now, you can find images of this building. I believe it's called the Secretariat Building. You can find this online. We're going to do it here in Google Earth because it's more fun. And the building actually lines up. This image of the building is very accurate and is actually the number of windows on this building. So let's count the numbers. Casey, why are you covering this? Why are you being so negative? You need to know the truth. If you don't know the truth, you will be lied to. Let's count the windows on this second course. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's count the second course, or the third course, I guess this is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's a 9 here and an 11 there. This was built in 1952. Do I have your attention yet? Esoterics and the occult and all these little hidden things these people do matter. And they are a very huge part of the equation. They are part of the evidence. They are part of the evidence. Now, everything that I just showed you represents about 2% of all of the evidence surrounding what happened 19 years ago. And the city that decided for the first time in 6 plus 6 plus 6 years to not shine the lights. Has chosen to do so 19 years after the event. They're blaming it on CV19. Do you see how all of these numbers line up? They used to shine 88 xenon bulb lights. And these lights caused problems with the birds that would fly by. They would get disorientated. They would fly in wrong directions. So they ended up having to turn these on and off every 20 minutes so as not to mess up the birds. Very, very weird. You guys, we live in a strange age where the very things that we are told we are fighting for are basically being silenced or threatened off the internet for even offering an alternative perspective about what happened. Simply even speaking about these things can get you silenced. So, what does all this mean? Well, that's up to all of you to decide. I just showed you some compelling evidence of things that just don't make any sense, that just don't line up. But yet, so few of us are awake to even begin to make a difference in the course of American history. So few of us are asking the hard questions. So few of us care. That's what I wanted to show you today on this show. I hope this message gets out to as many people as possible. Let's go into the chat for a little bit and understand that maybe one of the reasons why they're not shining the lights this year is because so many people are awake. They're trying to downplay the event. In fact, this story was very hard to find. Only the people that really live here know that they're not shining the lights this year. They downplayed it because they know that we are here at 19 years and the coincidences are uncanny. So, what is going on in the chat here? Okay. All right, we're going to end the show here. I pulled together a montage and I'm going to show you guys on Monday. And it's very interesting because it contains some more information from a series called Outlander, which we've spoken about quite a bit and talked to you about how Trump fits into that. These themes of time travel through these standing stones in Scotland. And I showed you how the stones from the Outlander series were actually stones that existed 4 miles away from where Trump's mother was born, on the Isle of Lewis. And I showed you all of those connections, and that's why they like to talk about Trump as the time traveler. I showed you how the man who wrote the Highlander series, which is also links into Scotland and the whole Scotland archetype, that he was invited up to Trump's office and Trump signed a book for him because Trump is the Highlander. He's the Outlander and he's the Highlander. He's Biff from Back to the Future. And so, at the end of the day, these programs like to mimic the future. They like to portray and depict the future. And in an Outlander episode in April of this year, so CV19 was already in full swing, but they show a snake biting the main character. He gets bit by a snake, but then they have to use a snake fang to cure him with penicillin. It's the snake eating the snake. And before he gets the penicillin, his friend has to open the leg and suck the venom out like a vampire. Do you see how all this fits into exactly everything we've been talking about? The snake eating the snake. So that'll be a good show. I'll put together that montage. I may upload the montage over the weekend and then we'll do the show on it. How's that sound? We'll do a premiere over the weekend. It's a short montage, but it'll be fun to get together with you guys over the weekend sometime during the premiere, and then we'll do a full-blown show on it on Monday. Now, what you're probably going to notice when this video uploads, it may come under censorship. And even as careful, and you notice not one time did I mention the number, not one time did I mention anything that should get a video like this censored, but YouTube is watching. This is the day of the year that they love to slow everything down on the internet and pull, videos and hide them, shadow ban them. And so, as you know, we didn't really cover a lot of the other aspects of today's events because they've already been covered. But these are some of the most profound esoteric aspects of the event, written right into the landscape. I love each and every one of you. Thanks to all the channel members that signed up through PayPal. You guys are amazing. You're going to help keep this channel afloat no matter what YouTube tries to do. $6 a month for those of you that are able. If you can't, don't worry about it. I'm just glad to have you here. And the link to that